Hey, hey, hey. Time for another out of this world story from our space. Full detailed story. Blinded my cheating wife with divorce papers and exposed her secrets in court. With update. This happened almost 20 years ago and I'm over it, but thought I'd post to see your opinions and similar experiences. I never had what you would call a healthy marriage to my first wife, and there were a lot of red flags I overlooked in the beginning because I had no real experience dealing with older women. I was 23 at the time and she was 28. To keep it short, I signed up to join the military after 9/11. I knew we were going to war and knew I was getting deployed. I did my basics at Knox and got stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas. My wife and I argued a lot at this point because she wanted to move, and I reminded her that it's not up to me where we go. I'm Uncle Sam's property till my tour is over. Needless to say, shortly after being stationed at Riley, orders came down that we would be deploying to Iraq. For as much as we argued, we had sex many times over the next few weeks. It was almost like when we first met, so I obviously didn't think anything was wrong. Fast forward to deployment day, and we're both a mess. I'm sure you can imagine. I'll spare you the boring details of the flight over because it's really not much to tell. We hit the ground in Kuwait, and I was across attached to 234 Armor, big boy crap. We were tasked with securing various locations for rebuilding and reuse. Can't give more details than that. I was deployed for 3 months before we had a post set up enough to receive mail and make calls home from a sat phone. The first few times I called, I got no answer, and mail started to flow for everyone, but me. Care packages from family members came once a week, and every week I waited for a letter or something from back home, and every week, nothing came. No phone calls were answered. It got to a point where other soldiers started donating things to me because I had nothing but standard TA-50. 9 months in, and still no letters, packages, or phone calls from my wife, and at this point, I was mentally not in a good place. Where I was at was a very bad place. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm told I need to take leave and go home, not knowing why I'm sent home only to come home to an empty house. When I say empty, I mean completely empty, to include my clothes. Later, I found out from my neighbors that she had moved some dude into my house for 4 months, and the rumor was she was pregnant. It got better. She stopped making my car payments, and it was repoed, claimed out the bank accounts, and ran up the credit cards buying new household items for a new place. She would camp out at the ATM and wait for my pay to hit my account and withdraw all the money except some change. I would have tried that, but the nearest ATM was 5 to 7 miles away, and I had no car, and it was the dead of winter in Kansas. Let me tell you, washing your clothes in the sink and drying them on the railing on the step every day because you don't have a washing machine or a dryer wasn't fun. I also had to beg for MREs from Supply because I had no money to eat. She made sure of that. I saw her for about 10 minutes before out processing from the military. At that time, she decided to let me know she was having twins, and obviously, they weren't mine. And JAG doesn't give two cracks about the soldier, just the spouse, and even though she cheated, she was still entitled to my check, which she was taking. We're obviously divorced, and I left a good bit of the other cracks she did because if I'd put it in, all of this would be a novel. If you want to know, drop a comment, and I'll post it later. Update. Deployed and destroyed. The details. Part 2. Here's an update and some of the more personal details I left out of the original post. When I got back to the States and saw my empty house, something inside broke, which I'm sure most of you can relate to, but I was also severely shell-shocked, PTSD. I'm old school, and that's what we called it back then. At the time, I wasn't in contact with my family, so I had no contact with people aside from the wives that had abandoned me. Friends, I tell you, staring at those silent walls, hearing voices and damn near wanting to respond to them can test your sanity to its limit. My commander knew something wasn't right because I had gone from about 220 pounds down to 170 in about a month due to stress, lack of food, not sleeping, and jogging 3 miles every night to quiet the voices in my head. I was eventually committed to Topeka Hospital for treatment. Prior to this, I hadn't really spoken to my ex-wife, and since I had been back, I'd seen her around post driving a car she bought in my name with a general power of attorney. I was now at my lowest, sitting in a mental hospital broken, mentally and physically, and wanted nothing more than for it all to end. Let me tell you, if you've ever been in one of those places before, you know it's a different animal. I mean, you will see things that make you question how bad you really got it. Don't get me wrong, my situation was the ass end of terrible, but it could have been worse. I get the notice that I have a visitor, and guess who? My ex-wife, a full 6-7 months pregnant, who basically came to see if she could finish the job. You're not going to believe this, and honestly, if it hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't have believed it either. She told me everything. That she had moved him in 2 weeks after I was deployed, and the affair had been going on for a year. Every time I went out for a field operation, he was there, and that they had planned to leave as soon as I got back, but decided it was better to be out before I got back. At this point, I was completely seeing red, and it took every ounce of my mental strength and discipline not to fly over the desk and break both feet off in her cheating behind. I don't know what came over me, but I got this crazy calm, and I guess my poker face came out. I remember the look on her face changing from a smug, bitchy, "I hope you rat in here," to look like, "What the F?" I remember feeling like a passenger in my own body because I wasn't controlling my mouth at this point. I said, "So is there a point here, or are you just bored?" She said, "I'm taking the rest of what you owe me." I said, "I didn't owe you anything that you haven't already taken. What more can you take? You got my money, and now my freedom. And I have one question for you. What the F did I do to you that was so bad that I deserve this?" Her answer, "I wasn't happy." That answer solidified in my mind that I needed to get out of here and as far away from her as possible. I said, "I'm done," and got up without speaking another word. I'm not proud of this part, but it was what I needed to do. I spent the next month in every session giving the perfect performance of normal as I could. Had some setbacks, but for the most part, I nailed it. The reason I said I'm not proud of it is because I faked it 100%. I was released 2 months later. The damage was done, and this, friend, is when I realized how bad I really was over the 2 months I was in the hospital. She had stopped taking all my money and was leaving about $300 out of each check. I guess it was better than nothing. I fell into alcoholism horribly and was blowing my little bit of money on alcohol and going to strip clubs. I was completely out of control. I figured I have nothing, so I got nothing to lose. This went on for about 2.5 more months of alcohol, strippers, and sex with barracks rats. Military members know what this is. Until I got papers to outprocess. And I remember asking the knock on duty, "Says I get paid tomorrow, and I'm technically out of the army today. Do I have to pay my soon-to-be ex?" "No." My God, I finally got a throne of bone. I asked for the earliest dang flight I could get, hopped on the plane, and watched Kansas get smaller and smaller in the window, and it was the best feeling in the world. How she got hers? There's really a whole other story in between, but I'll get right to that part where she got hers. About 2 years after, I got served divorce papers. Yes, I know I should have filed. And I'm sweating because we know how this goes for most men, and at the time, I was dating my current wife. So my father, my girlfriend, and I head down to the courthouse, and I saw her there with a friend, and she instantly looks at my girlfriend, and I can see the anger and jealousy well up in her eyes because my girlfriend is an upgrade in pretty much every way from her imaginable, and she knew it. We got into court, and at first it seemed like it was going to go as though I thought, till the judge, another woman, saw that I was deployed and that there were kids involved. When the ex hurriedly tried to rush past that, the judge asked what the arrangement was. I said, "They are my children, Your Honor." She again looked at her paperwork. It all changed from then on. Here comes the Enola Gay, folks. Bomb reference. A close friend of mine reminded me that she was married before. So when I got the divorce papers, I went downtown to pull those records to see when was her absolute divorce from her first husband. And guess what? She was still legally married 4 days into our marriage, and it was annulled that day. The best part was her plea to the judge that I knew she was still married. The judge said, "That doesn't matter. You knew you were still married to your first husband, and you still said yes. I'll see you again for polygamy." The hell that I had suffered was over, and I walked out that courthouse like I had 10-pound bowls and 5-pound underwear. I married my girlfriend 2 years after that and had a son. We are 10 years into our marriage, and the last time my father saw my ex was on a bus stop with her 2 kids. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. Let's get a couple comments before another story. Bruise and Bass says, "I love happy endings. I thanked my ex's new husband in front of her for taking her away. They were both confused." JC Photographer 71 says, "I love it when the good guys win in the end. Thank you for sharing this update. Sounds like you were so much better off without her in your life." One more comment from Cool Lobster 2074. "Did she have to pay back any of that money since you weren't legally married?" The OP did answer, "No, I never got anything back from her. And in all honesty, I never went after it. I was just happy to finally have this woman out of my life forever. Truth be told, even if I could get something from it now, I still wouldn't want it. My peace of mind knowing I never have to see or speak to that woman again in my life means more to me than what she stole." All right, moving on. My 27 female girlfriend, 30 female, hasn't had a job in 4 years and it's wearing me down. Hi everyone. I started a long-distance relationship with a girl I met through a friend, which lasted about a year, and culminated in her moving across state lines to be with me in the city. Everything was great, and we were truly in love with each other. Because she moved across state lines, and because she expressed that desire to leave her toxic field of choice and try her hand to something more banal, I agreed to take on the burden of supporting her for a while until she had a job. She would take on most of the cleaning and groceries, etc. while I was at work. I even agreed to sleep on a mattress in the kitchen because she had chronic insomnia problems and required very specific constraints under which she got sleep. I could tolerate these while working. I feel like I've done everything I could for her, including taking care of her expensive medical needs, which destroyed my savings. After around 1.5 to 2 years, I started to develop an anxiety disorder under the stress of supporting her. But had at first been something I was willing to do out of kindness and love, quickly became a consent issue, and has turned into a burden. Fast forward to now, 4 years after she came to the city, and still no job. I am a nervous wreck, and I feel completely emotionally run down by the burden of supporting her. I've destroyed my body by putting on weight due to the stress as well. I used to be pretty happy and carefree, but now I'm just depressed and anxious all the time. We have a non-existent sex life because my sex drive has tanked completely. I don't know what to do because I still love her, and we have a loving romantic relationship otherwise. She's never really done anything wrong, if that makes sense. She's been loving, helpful, and genuinely seemed affected by not succeeding in finding a job and helping her shoulder the burden. I never really cared for my mental health much before, but it's really starting to affect me. I've become emotionally unstable, and sometimes the stress and resentment come through in my interactions with her. The hardest part about this is that I can tell she's trying and just failing. I've tried to help, and I've been rebuffed several times and only able to help a bit, but otherwise, she hasn't done anything wrong. If she has, I haven't been able to tell what she's doing wrong in particular because I can't and don't want to be there 24/7 to monitor every job application. But I'm resentful because I feel like I've sacrificed everything from my body to my mental health to make this relationship happen, but it's just not happening. What do I do? To make it clear, this is a big, deal-breaking issue for me that I've told her is my primary source of stress and anxiety. I don't see much change, and I think she's too ashamed at this point to give me updates, which just compounds my stress because of the radio's silence. Update. Too long don't read, broke up. She was taking advantage of the last 2 years. I posted about a 4-year relationship causing me mental, emotional, and physical health problems due to said partner failing to find a job or contribute to the finances in any meaningful way. I made the post at the height of COVID in my area, trying to keep the relationship alive. At the time, we had moved to a new state and a smaller town to live more cheaply, and to help address my physical needs that couldn't be met in the city with everything and everyone locked down. Things were good for a few months. However, the job question came back again. I was working full-time and had taken on new responsibilities for keeping myself in shape, working hard to lose weight. That's when I noticed she was just kind of existing. She wasn't excited about anything in the area and wasn't doing much to find jobs. I had a talk with her in October, and we agreed that perhaps my request that she find a salaried 9-to-6 job could be relaxed and part-time would be sufficient to help out. After all, I only needed 2 things from her: space from time to time, and her to help out in any way she could with the finances. The first of 2 final straws occurred that winter. I was working to build a new business from scratch, and I had to leave my job in order to do it, which meant around approximately 4 months of negative income. It was going to be tight, but she agreed to help support by finding an easy job. The support never came. She couldn't do it, or didn't want to. I began to notice it felt more like the latter. As a result, we barely made rent in February, thanks to my taking on contract work on the side, effectively working 2 jobs. We had a huge fight in February over this. I wasn't willing to be that close to being homeless just because she didn't want to work a job that was beneath her qualifications. I made it explicit that this was a deal breaker for me and that I would not move an inch in the relationship until she started contributing in the way we discussed. She agreed. Another 5 months went by with no job. At this point, frustrated with her lack of success, she asked me to move with her to her hometown and move in with her parents while she looks for a job where she had a network. I flat out refused, and we went on a break. I moved to a new state and hoped that maybe some space would allow me to think clearly about the relationship. By September this year, I realized I felt completely happy to be on my own and stress-free. We broke it off completely. To my knowledge, she still hasn't found a job as of this post. I feel used, emotionally, physically, and financially abused, and hurt by how casually someone could run me into the ground like this. But I also feel hopeful about myself, and I'm seeing a therapist who's helping me unpack it all. Further, my business was worth it, and it's taken off and given me enough time and space to deal with all of this while maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Overall, the biggest downer is I feel like I just wasted 5 years of my life with someone who I'm fairly sure was a subtle abuser the whole time. It hurts to say it, but the way I always felt like the bad guy, or the way she would guilt trip me and keep me from my friends, bad news. I'll never let anyone do this to me again.